magical, mystical, meditative. These are some of the words that have been applied to the art form known as flagging. Tonight we're going to learn even more about it from one of its masters, Xavier Caylor. Welcome.
Thank you, David.
Do those words sound accurate to you and your perception of flagging?
Definitely, definitely.
Now, we have here in front of us a beautiful piece of silk. And is this what you would call a flag or a banner, or?
I call them flags. Certain members of the community call them rags, as opposed to with spines, fans, would be spines. So yeah, I call them flags though.
So I understand originally you're from San Diego, and you came to San Francisco what year?
In 1998.
And you had an experience in Golden Gate Park?
I did. I actually had learned flagging before, and I'd heard about this tribe up here that did flagging in the park. They were drawn to the AIDS Memorial Grove because it was then newly dedicated the National AIDS Memorial Grove, and they started throwing a party there, actually just going to honor their friends and live and flag for them. And I came up and attended one of those events, fell in love, and moved up here 3 months later. You
know, hearing you talk about flagging, it sounds like the way I've heard poets write about or people talk about mystical dance, things that the Sufis did. Is there a connection in any way?
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, most people don't get into flagging thinking it's a meditation. But when there's a point you let go of what you're doing and just start moving to the music, Eckhart Tolle would say you're in the moment, in the now, and that's a form of meditation.
What is it about flagging that magnetized you?
That meditation, the self-healing, the processing of cares and worries, the opportunity to drop into who I am and not be so focused on other things. It's very relaxing.
Now, I remember I moved to San Francisco in 1986, 87, and I was younger then, and I did my share of dancing and having a good time. And I wasn't aware of, maybe it existed then, but I wasn't aware of the quote-unquote flagging culture. And then in the dark days of the AIDS years, the late 80s, early 90s, I seemed to see flagging come about. Is that in my imagination, or is there a connection between AIDS, HIV, and the flagging community?
You have a great recollection. You did not attend the Trocadero transfer because that's where the fanners and the flaggers hung out, and that would have been in that 80s time zone. But you're right in that AIDS really hit the epidemic. You know, people that were flagging and fanning at that time were hard hit, and often it wasn't so much of a shared art. It's harder to make fans, easier to make flags, which is why the flags kind of took off. But back then it was fans, and often the boys that died with those were buried with them. So their secrets and their talents were lost to history.
Talk to me about the history of flagging. Where does it come from?
Well, I believe that flagging comes directly from a lesbian at the turn of the century, 1890s. Her name was Loie Fuller. Louise, but she went by Loie, play on words. She moved to Paris and hung out with that expat crowd. And she took the Folies Bergère by storm. Unashamed, out of the closet woman, lived with her lover for 27 years, was said to have, rumored to have romances with the Queen of Romania. And she had 100 yards of silk on her dress, and she worked to make it glow in a dark room.
100 yards on
her dress.
On her dress.
Yes, and she would spin and pirouette. There were not weights in it, but there were props that she would prop up and she would spin, and they would project. She approached Madame Curie for uranium so she could glow in the dark. And she's actually more known for her stage lighting, but she is said to be the mother of modern dance. And she introduced Isadora Duncan. She really was a culture creator and a trendsetter in her own right. She put fabric on the stage, which is where gays and lesbians have lived for many years. So this art form transferred to her through our brothers and sisters, and when we stopped getting beaten up in the 70s, we took that back out of the closet. Of course, it was in drag balls and you know, in private things that we would do for ourselves, but it really came out into the clubs when we had clubs big enough to do that, and when we stopped getting beaten for doing whatever we wanted to do.
Right, and the connection between AIDS and HIV, I mean, you said that community was very hard hit. Did it become a way to, I mean, dance in the face of darkness, literally?
Circuit parties were born out of the need to raise money for AIDS funds and AIDS charities. So we started gathering and having a party, though it might not have been that much of a party. It was a way to come together and do something for our community. So we were there, we were spending time with each other, we were consoling each other, and in the same instance, paying to be part of that and raising money to help our brothers and sisters. Very similar to the way Flagging in the Park started.
Now, Flagging in the Park is a nonprofit or a casual group. Tell me about it.
Flagging in the Park is a casual group. It's a few friends of mine that come together and put it on, but we do work through nonprofits. So if we have 5 events, they're kind of random days that start in May and end in October, and you can find more information about that on Flagger Central. And the next one's coming up here on July 26th. So all 5 of them are benefits. 4 of them, the benefits are chosen by the DJ. The one event that we do for the National AIDS Memorial Grove, which is on July 26th of this year, we pick a DJ and we fly them out. It's Warren Gluck, who is famous in his days.
Yep.
He's been DJing since the late 70s, and we're very excited to have him. And that one event, we choose the beneficiary because the AIDS Memorial Grove flies him out here, but the other 4 are chosen by the DJ. We contact the beneficiary, and so I'd contact you and say, we'd like to throw a fundraiser for you. Most of the time, if it's very quick, the reply back, yes. Sometimes people are a little hesitant, who's this group? Because all we want to do is hand you a check. And that's how we've been doing it.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misperception about flagging?
You know, the gay community, people throw all types they take what they don't like about the gay community and they put it on others. So everything has happened. I think the biggest thing is that flaggers are going to hit somebody, or that we need to have all the spotlight, because we like to be on stages away from people that don't flag, so we don't hit people. That's kind of a hard concept for people to grasp. And
so you think sometimes people say, oh, well, they're a clique. They don't want, there is an isolation about it.
There is an isolation because I'm throwing a pound of weights around me, and if somebody were to walk up into them, they're going to get half a pound upside the head. So yeah, that's isolating. But in the same time, that's part of the meditation, because I'm in my own world. I'm not out. When we open our eyes, we're 90% out of us. When I'm flagging, I'm more into my realm of who I am. And so yes, common misconception is that we want to be seen.
Yeah. How do you train for this?
How do you train for this?
Because it looks, I mean, it's one of those art forms that looks painfully easy, but I mean, I can't even do a yo-yo, so I would be a terrible flagger.
Well, there's no form. I teach a class. I've been teaching a class for 8.5 years at Fitness SF here in San Francisco. And people can come and take that class, and I will guide them through their first experience. But people that have never been to my class still pick up flagging by ordering a set online or making some their own, and figuring it out. It's very similar. I call it a flow art. And there's other flow arts that are very similar. One is fan dancing with fans. Another one is poi, which is very popular here in the Bay Area, especially fire poi because of the Burning Man influence here. And those all translate. It's much like different dialects of the same language. If you know one of the Latin languages, you can pick up the other ones pretty quickly. Now,
it has come to be, at least in San Francisco, it seems like a quote-unquote gay man's art. Is that necessarily true of flagging?
No. No, it's not. Loie Fuller was our first example there, and she wasn't a gay man. It is being held by the gay community, and there's a very charismatic leader in the gay community here in San Francisco that other people like me might see, I would like to be like that, or see themselves in me. And so, yeah, there are many gay men, but there's also many straight women. There's a few straight men that I know out there. And of course, poi is not a gay art at all. And people cross-pollinate from the poi community all the time. Yeah,
it's interesting. I of course seen flaggers in clubs. Most recently, my husband and I completed the California AIDS Life Cycle. And there were 2 flaggers in particular, dear friend Jim Beitzel and his colleague, whose name you know.
Yauka Lanning.
And they were flagging at, it seemed to me, at the top of the most difficult hills. Just when we thought, I cannot pedal one more inch, you would look and there they'd be. And they'd be flagging to some fabulous music. And it not only gave you inspiration, it gave you kind of I don't know, a spiritual lift. You kind of wanted, you seem to be drawn into the colors. At a moment, it becomes meditative, I think, for those who view as well. Do you think that's true?
I agree. Well, you know, if you look at somebody else in meditation, you can't help but feel that energy amongst yourself, right? Yes, but it has that dual. Flagging seems very showy, and it also has part of our community behind it. You realize that they're doing something that is a quote-unquote gay art form. I wouldn't necessarily say it's solely a gay art form, but it definitely has been held by the gay community for the past 130 years. So yes, these are your brothers and sisters that are out celebrating for you in a way that they know how.
Yeah, we've just got about 30 seconds left. Tell me what you personally, Xavier, get out of this.
The community around flagging is golden, and I'm so lucky to be part of that community. So lucky.
Great. And for those of us who want to learn more about it, we can go online too.
Flaggercentral.com, www.flagger with 2 G's, central.com.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, David.
Next up, our conversation with Jack Sugru and Harry Litt, 2 people who will tell us all about the bear community in San Francisco. We'll be right back.